Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I'm going to be telling you all about the BMP-3, which is my first Era 3 vehicle in the Cold War game mode. So the BMP-3 is an Era 3 light tank for the Eastern Alliance, and the reason, or the main reason, why I've chosen to get the BMP-3 first in Era 3 is basically because I really like the light tank gameplay and the introduction of the multiple weapon system, which I touched upon in my BMP-2 review, which I'll link above for you now. It just means that it's such a powerful tank in terms of its combat capacity, and you add the concealment that this tank gets and the light tanks get in Era 3, plus the mobility, and it's just an all-round blast to play in my opinion. And the sort of combat capacity for a light tank in this tank is insane, and we'll go on to talk about that in the statistics of the tank. So in today's replays I will be going over my equipment and my commander setup. I will of course tell you everything that I can, or I think that is useful in terms of the statistics of the BMP-3, and I have 3 gameplays, all really nice games, showing you how well this can play in Era 3 and how much of an impact you can have in your light tanks, and especially the BMP-3. So to get started, it has 2,850 hit points, so of course that's the lower side or the lower end of hit points in Era 3, but you are a light tank, so you do have to take that into account, and you do have the concealment rating to back that up. You also have 550 meters view range, which is very nice, and it's great news in terms of its mobility. It's got a 660 horsepower engine with a power to weight ratio of 35.21, which is absolutely fantastic. You can go 72.4 kilometers an hour forwards and 20.9 kilometers an hour backwards, and the traverse is really nice at 44 degrees a second on the hull and 48 degrees a second on the turret, meaning that you're able to try and dodge in and out, weave in and out, and try and avoid shells, and also circle the slower moving tanks if you can find them in Era 3. So now we get on to the fun bit, and that's the fun bit as we ammo rack a Challenger 2 for 4,030 damage, or just 4,000 damage I should say. The 30 damage was a fantastic shot at the start of the game. You're not going to get very far dealing 30 damage with your ATGMs, but as you can see I'm able to switch out between 2 ammunition choices. So I have a 30mm chain gun autoloader gun, and I also have the choice of firing ATGMs, which also fire HE or 100mm HE rounds out of them once you run out of your ATGM. So the 30mm gun has 200 shots per clip. Each shot deals 15 damage and the HE deals 25 damage. The penetration isn't fantastic on this gun. I run full premium APF SDS runs, as you can see, because the penetration on the standard APDS runs is only 120mm, which is awful, and so many World War II tanks have better penetration than that, and there's only 190mm of penetration on the premium, I should say. So even with the premium, you're not going to be penetrating all of your rounds unless you're doing what I'm doing and getting right up behind the side of an American butt there in the M1A2, or the sides and the plates that don't have spaced armour, and apart from that you're just going to have to average out about half of your shots penetrating, if that. In terms of the shell velocity though, it's really nice news. On the standard rounds it's 1,120 meters a second, whereas the premium rounds have 1,310 meters a second, and the HE so pointless really, in my opinion. It's 960 meters a second, so for that 25 alpha damage and 14mm of penetration, I just carry standard or premium. The HE will be absolutely pointless on the 30mm gun. You do fire 301.13 rounds a minute, which sounds impressive, but yeah, you are only dealing 15 damage a shot, but it does give you a DPM of 4,516.95. Obviously that's if you penetrate every round, and I can guarantee you pretty much won't be doing that with every clip that you fire. It's a 10-second reload though to reload the whole magazine of 200 shots, which is absolutely fantastic. You have a 1.7 second aim time, which is really nice, and a 0.32 accuracy, which comes down to a reasonable level once you've put a good commander and some equipment on the tank. You have 6 degrees of gun depression, and you have 57 degrees of gun elevation, so the elevation is really nice. The depression is a little bit disappointing, but the whole point of the light tanks is to scout and to flank the heavily armoured tanks and get round to their weaker armour plates. So that brings to an end the first replay, where we finish with 9.3k direct damage, 992 assistance, we get the mastery badge, 3 kills. Yeah, finishing top of our team in the MVP slot there with 1627 base experience points and making a nice profit of 189,000 silver. So we're going to head on now into the second replay, and I'll continue talking about the guns, my commander and equipment setup, and then I'll talk about how I like to play the BMP-3. So we're now into the second replay of today's video, and we're here on Heilbronn, and I'll just continue to talk about the 30mm gun and the ATGMs. Then I'll talk a little bit about the armour, although that won't last very long because there hardly is any armour at all. And then I'll talk about my equipment and commander setup, and we'll get talking about the gameplay. So just to finish talking about the 30mm gun, you can run out of ammunition very quickly. You carry 600 rounds, which sounds like a lot, but you can only carry 200 per magazine, and it reloads in 10 seconds. And yeah, you can get through that very quickly, so you do have to choose your opponents wisely and try and get up close and personal with these rounds. They're not really rounds that you want to be sniping with, even though they do have fairly good accuracy and aim time and shell velocity. With that penetration, you want to get right up behind someone and shoot into plates that you know you can penetrate, and pick your opponents wisely. And then we can come on and talk about the ATGM. So you have this 100mm HE launcher as well. So when you've run out of your 14 ATGMs, you can continue to fire HE rounds. So the ATGMs themselves deal 900 alpha damage with 850mm of penetration, and the HE rounds deal 470 alpha damage, but with only 120mm of penetration. The shell velocity is really slow on the ATGMs at 370 meters a second and only 355 meters a second on the HE. However, you do have a really nice DPM with the ATGMs. It's 5 rounds a minute with a DPM of 4,500. You carry 62 rounds in total, but bear in mind only 14 ATGMs and the rest will be HE rounds. The accuracy is 0.36, but with a good commander and some equipment you can get that down to a pretty reasonable level. And with the penetration of the ATGMs, you can go through pretty much most plates that you fire, as long as you try and avoid firing into the spaced armour or the ERA armour, the explosive reactive armour, because that will reduce the amount of damage that your ATGMs do. Sometimes you'll do damage below 50 alpha damage, sometimes it'll be 100 to 300, so try and shoot the weakest point of the tanks that you can, and if you can avoid shooting spaced armour, that is the best option, because at 850mm of penetration will go through pretty much any plate in Era 3. Yeah, that isn't got spaced armour or hasn't got an incredibly good turret or something like the Challenger 2 or the M1A2 Abrams, something like that. So with the multiple weapon system, technically you kind of have a combined DPM of about 9,000, and that's not taking away the amount of time it takes you to switch between both of the armament choices. So you can switch between these guns and get an insane DPM. You can get an incredible damage potential. You're only basically limited by the amount of rounds that you carry, so 14 ATGMs and only 3 magazines worth of the 30mm rounds. So you do have to try and pick and choose what you fire at and when you engage, and that's the best way to use the ammunition choices with the BMP-3. So in terms of the armour, then I said I'd talk about it just a little bit. The thickest part of the armour is 72mm. You have an 18mm upper plate, a 60mm lower plate, which is absolutely massive, and on your turret is 55mm with the thickest part. So you're pretty much just going to get penned by everything, ATGMs, HE, and you're very light, so don't ram things if you can help it. So now we can talk about my equipment and commander setup. So should you wish to run what setup I have in these replays, with my equipment I run advanced concealment, traction system and advanced powertrain. I want to get my mobility up as good as possible to outrun anything that I can, or outrun nearly everything that I can. Of course there will be things that are faster than the BMP-3, but this is one of the fastest now. It's very agile with the mobility pieces of equipment and very useful, and concealment makes me even more stealthy. I can flank opponents. If they don't see me with the true vision system, the next time they see me I'll be right up behind them firing an ATGM, then switching to my 30mm and dumping lots of rounds into the rear of their tank. And in terms of my commander, I run Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot, and Situational Awareness, so just helping my concealment, view range and gun handling there, a very typical light tank setup. And that now gives me a view range of 611 metres, 202 metres of still concealment, which is absolutely insane. I can now go just shy of 95 kilometers an hour forwards, just shy of 28 kilometers an hour backwards. My whole traverse is 48.4 degrees a second, and my turret traverse is 50.06 degrees a second, which is absolutely phenomenal. I now have a 0.28 accuracy on my gun, 1.63 second aim time, and a 9.59 second reload on the 30mm auto cannon, with a DPM of 4,711 on my 30mm and a DPM of 4,698 on my ATGMs, with a combined DPM, not taking away the amount of time it takes to switch between both of the armaments, of 9,409, which is absolutely insane. You are, like I say, only limited by the amount of rounds that you can carry. So in that game, as you can see, we finish with 9.3k direct damage, 1,000 assistance, 4 kills, make a profit of 81,000 silver, and yeah, an all-round decent game there. So now we're going to head on into the third and final game and talk about how I like to play the BMP-3. So now you join me in the third and final replay of today's video here on El Alamein with the BMP-3, and I'm going to use the enhanced mobility that I have by using the two pieces of mobility equipment, the advanced powertrain and the traction system, and I'm going to try and get to a good spotting location at the start of the battle, which is what I like to do in this tank on pretty much every map that I'm able to do it in. Get a lay of the land, see where the enemy team are going, and then I'm able to relocate if necessary, depending on where the enemy are and where my team are going. So here on this ridgeline in F5 is a fantastic spotting location on El Alamein for World War II light tanks, for Cold War light tanks. However, you have to bear in mind with Cold War light tanks, you don't want to spend too long on this ridgeline. Obviously you're undetected, but you are always visible with true vision, and as you can see there, someone did try and fire at us with an ATGM, and I kind of felt like a shot was incoming, so I did duck down behind this ridgeline, and I'm just trying to sort of bait some people around this corner and just see who's coming up from the south. It's a really nice location, and hopefully you can get some good side shots into tanks that are pushing into the centre of the map. You're seeing the 6 degrees of gun depression was a little bit annoying there, so I had to reverse down the slope a little bit more to get that ATGM into that M3A2, but we do manage to pick up 906 alpha damage, and you'll see in here just how crazy the damage potential is of the BMP-3 with this multiple weapon system. We're reloaded in under 12 seconds for the ATGM, and we can switch to that 30mm autocannon whenever we want to. There I think we just hit the track and do no damage on that M1, however we will be reloaded pretty quickly, so that's not really a massive issue. One fantastic thing about firing ATGMs that deal such high alpha damage is that you are likely to ammo rack set tanks on fire and damage modules. And also with the 30mm autocannon, if you damage a module, you'll continuously fire into the same area, you are likely to damage it again, and if that's a fuel tank, you're likely to set them on fire, or an ammo rack. You can ammo rack them if you repeatedly hit the same part of the enemy tank, so bear that in mind. You can get set on fire and ammo rack very easily by the BMP-3, and you can also use that to your advantage. With ATGMs, if you know where the fuel tanks are on some tanks like the M1A2 at the rear of the tank, try and fire your ATGMs into the rear. Here, for some reason, I think that's just the accuracy, that's what I'm going to blame it on. We only hit the tracks there and deal just over 300 damage with the ATGM, but you can see now I'm switching to my 30mm gun, trying to just take the brunt of some of this firepower from this M1A2 for my teammates, trying to help them out. However, I'm kind of on my own right at the moment. I'm putting as many shots in as I can, trying to evade getting hit. I keep getting rammed by this M1A2. That's bad driving on my part. I should have been more careful with my hit points there, and I could have saved myself about 500 hit points, but we still take him out nonetheless, and we've taken our damage total to just shy of 6k damage, and our assistance at 1247 assistance damage. You'll see there that I run the smoke consumable for the passive and active boost to my concealment, and to try and get out of situations like that where I'm a one-shot, and then I can reflank and use my concealment to stay hidden for the rest of the battle. I knew that heavy tank was coming around here, and I'm just going to wait here when he fires and try and support the tank in front of me. And you're just seeing how useful it is now to switch between the different armament choices and different ammunition choices. You can take out tanks so quickly, and yeah, you really are just limited by how much ammunition you can carry, how many hit points you have, and how sort of sneaky and how well you play the tank. So in terms of this particular game here on El Alamein, you'll see that it's now 5 against 6 in the enemy's favour, so we're going to have to try and do all we can to try and help our team take that one down. You're seeing the slow shell velocity of the BMP-3 there. It takes a while to get to grips with the handling of it because it is so slow. But you do get the hang of it, and you can hit some good shots at long range. And with the fantastic penetration that these ATGMs have, with 850mm penetration, you will be penetrating at distance, because you won't lose any penetration over distance with the ATGMs. However, you're probably just going to have trouble actually hitting things, especially tanks that are on the move. So at long range, it's better to fire at undetected, or tanks that are just sat still, and up close and personal you're able to sort of free aim for weak spots, and it's a much easier shot with the ATGMs because there's less distance to travel. So now I'm spotted, I'm a one shot. I just want to try and get re-stealthed, come up behind these tanks and put shells in where I can. I'm just trying to assist my teammates here where I can, but I think that's a bit too risky there. They see me, I'm on a one shot, I'm most likely going to be the first tank that they go for, so I'm going to come up on this ridge line, see if I can get some shots into these heavies here that are located straight in front of me. We've got 4 ATGMs left. I'm hoping I can penetrate every single one. Unfortunately, just as we fire, smoke gets put out by, I think it was that Stingray 2, and unfortunately for us, he has moved, meaning that we didn't deal any damage there. But now we're going to try and get a shell into this M1A2 here, and as he moves, I swing my ATGM just to the right, trying to aim for that fuel tank. I think we do damage his fuel tank or his engine there, but it looks like it was repaired, and that's a really good tactic to do. If you know where fuel tanks are, spend some time in the garage with the looking at the armour modules and the crew modules and the crew layout, I should say, and look for where they are, and then you can aim for specific parts of tanks. And with high caliber guns or with ATGMs, you are most likely going to damage modules. So we get a nice shot here at distance. You'll see how slow that shell velocity is. You do get a hang of it, like I say, but you can just see how slow it is. So if people do move quickly at distance, you are likely to miss a lot of rounds, and you do carry 14 rounds, but you reload so quickly that you can get through them very quickly, like you can get through the 30mm rounds. So you're limited by that, and you've just got to try and pick and choose when it is necessary to use them and when is the best time to use them. So now we are up 2-1. They've only got 2 tanks left. It looks like we've got some players that aren't bots, so we're going to go and help them now, and it looks like we should be able to take this one down. We're going to get an ATGM at distance here, fire it into that M1 there, finish them off, kill that bot, and just take our damage total over that 10k mark. So that's the end of the third and final replay, where we finish in the MVP slot, picking up 10,680 damage, mastery badge, 1,247 assistance, 3 kills, make a profit of just shy of 180,000 silver, and an overall fantastic game in a tank that I really enjoy. So I hope you've enjoyed this replay. I hope that you've taken something from the gameplay and how I like to play this tank, and I make the most of it. I highly recommend the BMP line since it was given the multiple weapon system. It's a lot of fun. So until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.